Good evening, and welcome to today's Deep Dive Analysis. I'm your host, Narrator Name, and over the next 50 minutes, we will explore one of the most sensational legal dramas to rock the world of sports and media in recent memory. The $50 million civil lawsuit filed against NFL Hall of Famer and ESPN analyst Shannon Sharpe. We'll unpack the timeline of events, examine key allegations, and weigh the impact on Sharpe's legacy and his family, particularly the startling public statement from his daughter that have upended the narrative. But this won't be just a recap of facts. Along the way, I'll offer my own perspective on broader themes, the power dynamics at play, the ethical boundaries of airing private messages in public, and the complex calculus corporations face when balancing legal risk against reputational harm. By the end of our journey, you'll have a clear sense not only of what happened, but why it matters for anyone invested in issues of fame, justice, and family loyalty in the digital age. So sit back, perhaps grab a fresh cup of coffee, and let's begin unraveling this story. One that started in a Los Angeles gym and soon escalated into one of the most talked about scandals of 2025. Shannon Sharpe's name is synonymous with football excellence. Born in 1968 in Chicago, Illinois, he rose from humble beginnings to become one of the greatest tight ends in NFL history. 3 Super Bowl rings, 8 Pro Bowl selections, and induction into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 2011 cemented his status on the gridiron. After retiring in 2003, Sharpe transitioned seamlessly into media, first lending his insights to CBS Sports and later to Fox Sports. In 2023, he joined ESPN's flagship debate show, First Take, where his boisterous personality and unfiltered opinions made him a fan favorite. Alongside Stephen A. Smith, Sharpe quickly became one of the network's most valuable voices. So much so that rumors swirled of him securing a $100 million-plus media deal as recently as early 2025. His post-playing career also included successful podcasts, Club Shay Shay and Nightcap, the former winning an NAACP Image Award for Outstanding Society and Culture podcast in February 2025. To millions, Sharpe represented triumph over adversity and the power of reinvention. Against this backdrop of athletic and media stardom, the April 21st, 2025 court filing in Clark County, Nevada hit like a thunderbolt. A previously unheard-of civil lawsuit from a woman identified only as Jane Doe accused Shannon Sharpe of assault, battery, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. Allegations so serious they threaten not only his personal reputation, but the very foundation of his public persona. In my view, the stark contrast between Sharpe's celebrated legacy and the explosive nature of these claims is what makes this case so captivating. It challenges us to consider, how do we reconcile the image we've built of a hero with allegations that cut so deeply? And what does it mean when a mythic figure stands accused of conduct that many of us find unthinkable? Let's delve into the heart of the lawsuit. According to court documents, the relationship between Sharpe, then 56, and the plaintiff, then around 19 or 20, began in 2023 at a Los Angeles fitness center. Initially described by the woman as tumultuous but consensual, the interaction allegedly turned controlling and abusive by mid-2024. The civil complaint, a whopping $50 million demand, details incidents of non-consensual physical contact in October 2024 and January 2025. Beyond alleged physical assault, Jane Doe claims Sharpe made illicit recordings of intimate encounters, distributing them without consent and causing her emotional trauma. Such behavior, if proven, would constitute not only assault but violations of privacy and dignity, charges that carry significant moral weight, even if no criminal prosecution is underway. Consider the timeline and age gap. A teenager fresh out of adolescence and a celebrated professional athlete with decades of life experience. Even a consensual relationship raises ethical questions about power dynamics. When those dynamics tip into allegations of coercion, the stakes become exponentially higher. But let's hold judgment for a moment and examine the credibility of the claims. Jane Doe's attorney, Tony Busby, is no amateur. He built his career and reputation on representing women in high-profile NFL cases, most notably the Deshaun Watson lawsuits that resulted in 23 financial settlements. Busby's involvement lends a presumption of seriousness and legal acumen to the case. Yet Busby's track record is not without controversy. Lawsuits he filed against Jay-Z and Sean Diddy Combs were dismissed or retracted under murky circumstances. Here we encounter our first tension: credibility versus motive. On one hand, Busby's work on behalf of alleged victims has delivered justice in certain cases. On the other, his penchant for high-stakes litigation raises the possibility, however unsettling, that some cases seek publicity or financial gain over truth. From my perspective, it's prudent to weigh both sides. The woman's allegations, given their gravity, deserve a thorough, impartial legal inquiry. Conversely, we must be cautious about weaponizing personal trauma for leverage. The truth may lie somewhere in between, a complex interplay of genuine harm, power imbalances, and strategic legal maneuvering. Faced with these explosive allegations, Shannon Sharpe mounted a vigorous defense through his lawyer, Lanny J. Davis. Their message was unequivocal. Every claim is false, a calculated bid for a multi-million-dollar payday. Davis described the relationship as entirely consensual, prompted, he contends, by repeated requests from Jane Doe herself. Within days of the lawsuit's filing, Sharpe's team released what they claim are the plaintiff's own text messages and social media exchanges. These messages, replete with explicit sexual content, were intended to bolster Sharpe's version of events. One reads, "I want you to put a dog collar on me and choke me while you have sex with me," suggesting a consensual BDSM-style dynamic. Another boasts, "I know you missed this big, juicy ass." These disclosures became a lightning rod for debate. Critics argued that publicizing private messages is an egregious invasion of privacy, an unethical tactic that foregoes the courtroom in favor of sensationalism. Supporters countered that in a civil suit, where evidence is paramount and proceedings are public record, selective leaks serve the public interest by providing context. In my assessment, both viewpoints carry merit. On principle, private communications, especially those of a sexual nature, should remain protected from public consumption. Yet, when those communications become the pivotal evidence in a high-stakes lawsuit, transparency can serve justice, provided it's handled with care for the individuals involved. The real question is whether Sharpe's team overstepped, or whether they simply recognize that in the court of public opinion, narratives are shaped by available evidence, whether private or public. Adding further complication, Busby responded by leaking an audio clip purportedly of Sharpe threatening the plaintiff. "I'll choke you out if I see you." Sharpe disputes the clip's authenticity and context, suggesting it's an edited snippet from a longer recording designed to inflame public sentiment. He since challenged Busby, "Rather than sharing your edited clip, just release the whole 10-minute video." This tit-for-tat spectacle, text dumps versus audio leaks, underscores a modern problem: the erosion of evidentiary sanctity in favor of viral moments. As I see it, the real victim here may be the legal process itself, which risks devolving into a media circus. Perhaps the most seismic moment came when Sharpe's daughter, long a private figure, publicly responded. Her statements, brimming with emotion, challenged both the plaintiff's narrative and the notion that Sharpe's team was simply deflecting. She described the alleged leaks as twisted portrayals of her family's personal life and urged the public to consider the human cost of sensational headlines. Her intervention reframed the story. It was no longer solely about the litigants. It was about legacy, reputation, and the collateral damage inflicted on loved ones. For many observers, a child publicly defending her parent added a poignant, undeniable layer of authenticity. It forced us to reckon with the emotional stakes at play: reputational devastation, familial bonds tested under public scrutiny, and the pain of seeing private struggles splashed across social media feeds. From my perspective, her remarks highlight an essential truth. High-profile lawsuits are never just legal files. They are human dramas that ripple through families, leaving scars that can last long after court papers are archived. The daughter's courage in speaking out, risking her own privacy to defend her father, speaks volumes about the personal toll of public litigation. It also invites us to reflect. When we consume sensational stories online, do we pause to consider the real people behind the headlines? As the legal showdown unfolded, major media outlets offered remarkably balanced coverage. NBC News ran side-by-side interviews with Davis and Busby. The New York Times analyzed the case's civil versus criminal context. ESPN itself stuck to no comment when pressed, an unusual but telling corporate stance. In my view, this measured approach stands in stark contrast to the rapid-fire clickbait that often defines modern sports media. Nonetheless, the question loomed: what should ESPN do with one of its biggest on-air talents under such a cloud? Historically, networks have varied in their responses. In 2010, when Sharpe faced earlier claims at CBS Sports, he suspended himself pending clarification. Today, ESPN has allowed him to remain on First Take, drawing sharp criticism from some who argue that even civil allegations warrant a suspension. Others applaud ESPN's deference to due process and presumption of innocence. Here, we arrive at a corporate dilemma: suspend a marquee personality and risk alienating fans and sponsors, or stand by him and invite accusations of complacency. In my analysis, ESPN's choice to hold steady, neither elevating nor sidelining Sharpe, reflects a broader industry trend toward wait and see. It's a high-wire act. One misstep can damage the network's credibility. Too much caution can appear as inertia. We must consider the business calculus. Advertising deals, viewership metrics, and contractual obligations all weigh heavily. ESPN extended Sharpe's contract in February 2024 and again in June 2024, moves that signal confidence. To overhaul that arrangement mid-lawsuit could carry massive financial penalties. Yet, to simply ride it out risks an eruption of public backlash should the case take a darker turn. From my vantage point, no single strategy can satisfy all stakeholders. Ultimately, network executives must balance legal counsel, PR considerations, and core values. That they've opted for relative silence suggests a calculated gamble. That by maintaining equilibrium, they preserve optionality, awaiting more information before declaring a definitive stance. Beyond boardrooms, the court of public opinion has been equally divided. Platforms like X and Instagram have seen hashtags like #JusticeForJaneDoe and #StandWithSharpe trend in alternating cycles. Memes caricaturing the leaked text collide with clips of Sharpe's pep talks on First Take. Opinion articles, often written in outraged or celebratory tones, dominate comment sections. Social media's free-for-all environment amplifies extremes. Nuance gets lost amid 280-character hot takes. In my view, this cacophony underscores the perils of living in a digital age where every fragment of evidence can be weaponized and every opinion momentarily feels like fact. Those of us seeking balanced analysis must resist the siren call of viral certitude. Yet the split in public sentiment isn't merely ideological. It reflects deeper societal fissures, beliefs about gender and power, assumptions about celebrity culture, and faith in the justice system. Some see Jane Doe as emblematic of women who speak truth to powerful men. Others view her as a possible opportunist seeking wealth by targeting a high-profile figure. Likewise, Sharpe's defenders see his fall from grace as a travesty. His critics see it as overdue accountability. My perspective, social media may inflame, but it also shines a light. The volume of commentary compels us to sift through biases, to examine source credibility, question motives, and prioritize evidence over outrage. It's vital to clarify that this is purely a civil lawsuit, not a criminal indictment. Jane Doe is seeking monetary damages, not jail time. The burden of proof in civil court, a preponderance of evidence, is lower than beyond a reasonable doubt in criminal cases. This distinction matters. In civil proceedings, a jury can find Sharpe liable even if prosecutors wouldn't pursue criminal charges. Conversely, Sharpe could be wholly exonerated and still face public suspicion. As commentator Stephen A. Smith noted, the absence of a potential prison sentence offers some solace, but reputational harm can be just as punishing. In my analysis, civil litigation has become a primary venue for grievances that once were the exclusive domain of criminal courts. This trend reflects both the limitations of our criminal justice system and the increased willingness of individuals to leverage civil remedies to seek validation, closure, or compensation. Two additional dimensions warrant attention: race and age. Sharpe himself claimed that Busby's tactics aim to undermine the credibility of black men. That assertion taps into long-standing societal tensions about race, justice, and bias. For members of the black community who viewed Sharpe as a symbol of triumph over adversity, the lawsuit feels especially fraught, an attack not just on an individual, but on collective representation. Meanwhile, the significant age gap, Sharpe in his mid-50s, the plaintiff under 21, raises questions about informed consent and life experience. Even if legal, such relationships can be seen as inherently imbalanced. My view is that society must grapple with these complex intersections compassionately and critically, acknowledging the reality of consensual adult relationships while remaining vigilant about coercion and exploitation. Let's consider possible resolutions: dismissal or settlement. The suit could be thrown out, or the parties might settle confidentially. This path would spare both sides a protracted trial, but leave unanswered questions and likely include a non-disclosure agreement, silencing future discussion. Liability finding. If Sharpe is found liable, he could face a judgment close to the full $50 million. That outcome would reverberate across sports media, possibly prompting ESPN to sever ties and jeopardizing his podcasts and endorsements. Partial victory. Sharpe might win on some claims, but lose on others, resulting in limited damages. Such a split decision could leave both sides claiming victory, but would still raise eyebrows about the nature of their relationship. Protracted appeals. Regardless of the trial court's decision, appeals could drag the case out for years, extending uncertainty for Sharpe, his family, and his employer. Whatever unfolds, the case sets powerful precedents. Media organizations will revisit their crisis management playbooks. Public figures will weigh the risks of private conduct becoming public spectacle. And families of high-profile individuals will brace for collateral damage when their loved ones face accusations. In my perspective, this lawsuit is emblematic of a broader cultural shift. We live in an era where private relationships can be exhumed, dissected, and broadcast worldwide, often via edited snippets and sensational headlines. The once sacred boundary between personal life and public persona has eroded. As a society, we must ask, what safeguards do we need to protect both reputations and victims? And how do we ensure that our pursuit of truth doesn't devolve into a hunger for scandal? At its core, this is a family story. Shannon Sharpe, at age 56, built a legacy of perseverance, excellence, and outspoken candor. His daughter's impassioned defense reminds us that behind every public figure stands a network of loved ones whose lives are upended by controversy. For the Sharpe family, the stakes are immeasurable: emotional trauma, reputational risk, and the prospect of financial ruin. Their courage in facing this storm, and in parts speaking out, offers a testament to familial bonds tested by fire. As we await the next developments, let us do so with a commitment to empathy and critical thinking. Let us privilege facts over rumors, respect due process, and remember the human beings at the center of this legal farrago. Conclusion and call to action. Approximate 300 words, 2 minutes. Thank you for joining this in-depth exploration of the Shannon Sharpe civil lawsuit. If you found this analysis enlightening, please like, subscribe, and tap the notification bell so you won't miss future deep dives into the stories shaping sports and culture. And if you have questions or perspectives of your own, drop them in the comments below, in a respectful tone, of course. Until next time, I'm Narrator Name. Stay curious, stay compassionate, and remember, in the age of information, let's strive for understanding over sensationalism. Good night.